Hey everyone, welcome to the CyberHub Engage podcast. Your host, James Azar here. So excited to have you on today's episode because while cyber is a really, really fun topic to talk about, and we all love it, that's why you tune into this podcast. Today we're going to talk about mental wellness with a CISO. Yeah. Oftentimes as CISOs, we talk about bourbon and my espressos that I so adore because that's my fuel to get through my days. But today we're going to learn new ways of how to deal with our mental wellness in the challenging field of cybersecurity, especially given some of the recent reports. I've got Jothi Dugar, correct? Did I say your last name correct?
Jothi Dugar.
Jothi Dugar. I'm so sorry. I typically check names before we go live, before we actually start recording. So I do apologize. Jothi Dugar, who is a CISO, an author, a dance instructor. Let me tell you, our first conversation, I didn't want it to stop. I was in such peace and clarity after it. So I'm really excited for today's episode. We're going to be right back with Jothi Dugar after this message from our sponsors, and we'll get right into today's episode. Do you know where all your keys are stored? Do you know how many certificates and keys you have? Are you managing keys in multiple environments? If you don't have a secure cryptographic foundation, chances are you're struggling to understand the status and security of your cryptographic keys. Unbound's key security and management experts can help. Our FIBS validated cryptographic key security and management platform allows you to maintain visibility of all your keys, whether on-prem or in the cloud, without compromising on your security. Know exactly where your keys are and how they're being used. Manage them all with a single pane of glass. Automate operations in your organizations while saving time and money and manpower on doing just that. With Unbound, your enterprise can achieve agility and efficiency, gain control, and reduce risk. Today, Unbound is offering CyberHub Engage listeners a free demo of their cryptographic key management technology. Just go to bit.ly-getunbound. Again, that's bit.ly-getunbound for a direct ability to book your free demo of their cryptographic key management technology, which will help you secure your organization. Again, that's bit.ly-getunbound. Hey everyone, I really want you to help me in supporting our early sponsor, Get Smart Eye. So Get Smart Eye is still in beta testing, but what Get Smart Eye is, it's an amazing app that lets you control your privacy, whether it be documents, pictures, anything that you want to share with your friends or not. Think of Snapchat, only no screenshots and no one else looking over it. So if you travel a lot, if you're in airports, coffee shops, shared workspaces, and you care about your privacy, Get Smart Eye is the right app for you to protect your privacy. And here's the deal. Get Smart Eye is still in beta testing. I use the app all the time. In fact, some of you know that I travel a lot, and when I do, I don't like people looking at my screen at airports. I do everything off my phone, and as such, I use Get Smart Eye for all my sensitive documents and all my planning. So here's what you need to do to be one of our early technology adapters, an exclusive offer for CyberHub Engage listeners. Text 41411, again, that's 41411, 41411, and type in the message of your text, Smart Eye. Then reply to the SMS that you're going to get with the letter Y, like Yankee, and download the Apple Test Flight app. Then go back to your SMS and you'll get a link to download the Smart Eye app. Download the Smart Eye app and use it. Again, this is an early offer for only CyberHub Engage users. Text 41411. Again, that's 41411 with Smart Eye in the message. Jothi, welcome to the CyberHub Engage podcast. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm utopic. We're recording. I gotta say, it's the day before Valentine's Day, and I've been giving people Valentine's Day tips. So before we start talking about kind of, your career in cyber and mental wellness in cyber and so all that great stuff around cyber, got a question for you. What should cyber guys who typically, aren't very savvy, the actual practitioners, we're not always very savvy. What's the best Valentine's Day gift?
the best Valentine's Day gift is probably to ignore Valentine's Day and just use the rest of the 364 days to be nice to your spouses and family and kids. That's what I tell my husband. Don't buy me anything on Valentine's Day. Just take the rest of the 364 days to show your real appreciation.
Show daily appreciation, a please, a thank you. And one of the things in Judaism is Shabbat, Friday night, is a very, very it's when all the family gets together, right? So I always get my wife flowers on Friday, always. Like, it's standard. So if I miss a Friday, I hear about it. Right?
Yeah,
no flowers today.
Every day. Right.
Yeah. No flowers on a Friday. But Jothi, so how did you get started in cyber? Because your kind of background is very, very unique, and you do so much stuff. I've never met anyone in cyber who's also a dance instructor, by the way. So I got to hear about that.
I could be the dancing CISO. That's funny you say that. They actually have a cyber rap that I created for when I was it's on my website, and it was a big hit. But to answer your question, well, I did my major was in electrical engineering. And before that, I had switched to electrical engineering back in the day because for the longest time, I wanted to be a doctor. And the only reason I wanted to be a doctor was to help people, or I thought I was going to help people. But I had this class in college where the doctors would come and ask you, why do you want to be a doctor? And when I said, well, I want to help people, they said, well, you can help people in other ways besides being a doctor. And then they went over a whole bunch of other reasons why you need a much stronger case than that. So I'm like, okay, I thought about it for a while. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll switch to something else. My parents were both electrical engineers, so I thought, hey, this can't be that hard. So I switched to engineering. Long story short, I graduated from that, and I did a whole lot of traveling for 5-6 years. I traveled the world. I lived in Europe, Canada. I think I went to about 48 out of the 50 states in the US. So I had my time. And then I was in a position where, I really didn't know where, I could have gone in multiple different directions. Because the one thing that I found was just learning different cultures, learning how to interact with different people, different personalities, different roles, how to speak up for yourself, how to advocate for yourself, which you learn really quickly in the world of consulting. Because once you're off of a project, you have to basically, promote yourself. So being a woman or a young woman at that time, I wasn't good in promoting myself. I would just go there like, yep, you should really get me on that project. Why? Because I'm such a great person. But the reason I bring all this up is because I feel like all of that was building up to where I am today. The organizational skills, project management skills, the ability to speak up for yourself, but also for the organization, and just speak up for justice, and the right thing to do. So I gained all of those skills through the various different positions I was in. But what really got me in the door to security was about 2005. I was working for a company and with an excellent supervisor who actually saw the potential in me to go into the cyber field. So I was doing a lot of project management and IT related work, and he said, hey, you seem, you're a fast learner. You seem to pick up technical topics really easily. We have all of these skills. Why don't you try this new field out there? It's called cybersecurity, or at the time it was information assurance. So I said, okay, well, that's interesting. Let me take a look at it. And whatever I found wasn't very appealing to a young minority woman, because when you looked into the cybersecurity field, it was predominantly male dominated.
Yep.
And, very specific race, culture, age group. So I was like, I don't know, this doesn't seem very, appealing to me. But I said, okay, I'll try it out. So I took a couple courses. I took ethical hacking, and I took a couple SANS courses, and it started piquing my interest. So, I got into the project, started working with DoD. I've been working with DoD since high school. So I was glad to, have that backbone behind me. And I really never left. I thought maybe I'll try it out for a couple years and then move on to something else. But it's just such a great field to be in, just because you have so many different opportunities and just so many different avenues you can pursue within cybersecurity that I don't think I'll ever leave at this point.
I think we're too entrenched in cyber at this point to just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to somewhere else. Plus, cyber's all encompassing, like you said. I think that's a common misconception for a lot of people around that want to look at cyber. I do a lot of talks, and I do talks outside of cyber because I don't like to talk in an echo chamber. And when I'm talking to kids, a lot of times they go, well, I'm not really good at a computer. And I'm like, you don't have to be good in computers to be good in cyber. There's so many other skills outside of just the keyboard skills that are required in cyber. There's analytical skills and marketing skills and sales skills and so many other skills to it. And speaking that, your background also carries so many different skills. How has that helped you evolve and into becoming a CISO, and how has it really prepared you for your role?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So I look at myself from a holistic point of view as a whole person, not me as a CISO or me as a dance director or me as a wellness practitioner. I used to it at one point in time, and then I was going crazy because I was getting burnt out and not really connecting the dots between all these different fields. So I really had to sit down, like, is there a connection between all of these things? Is there a connection within yourself, using the mind body energy connection? Does that same connection apply to you and how you relate to others? And if you think about it, everything is connected. We're all connected in some way or form. And what I started doing was I started to bring in the wellness side into cybersecurity by starting a health and wellness program, or just talking to people in a different way than most are used to. Then I started bringing in some wellness perspectives into the dance classes I teach. So you're not just teaching the dance and then rushing them out. You're teaching them about how to take care of themselves from a holistic point of view, building their confidence, building their skills, building their ability to advocate for themselves. So I really started, I think, bridging the wellness community with a technical community. And what I noticed from the cyber side, or just the IT side, is that there's so much burnout in that industry because people aren't able to connect those dots. They think of themselves as a cyber professional or an IT professional coming to work, and then they have this whole side of them at home, and they're not really connecting the dots. And how do they fit together? So I became like really passionate about helping people because I went through a major health journey myself 3 years ago when my third baby was born. And it took me about 2.5 years to really recover from that, naturally using a whole bunch of holistic methods. And I really wanted to bring that to others. I couldn't keep it all within myself. So I'm all about sharing and helping others and serving others. And if you look at it, cyber is all about that. It's about, the more you share with one another, the more you work together, the more you collaborate, you can do so much more than just trying to solve the world's problems by yourself or keeping secrets. So I think just understanding how everything fits together, especially if it's one person that's doing all of these things, it's all part of one person. So you have to really understand how everything works together and affects one another.
So kind of takes me to a story you and I were discussing before we went on air for the podcast, but something I was reading last night and you even shared it this morning, which is the average life cycle of a CISO is 26 months. The burnout rate is incredible. I know CISO roles where they can't pay you enough to be a CISO,
Or I know CISO roles where the pay is so little, it's not worth the headache or anyone taking the role. What do you recommend other CISOs or cyber leaders do to manage the stress and the burnout and this life of a cyber? Because unlike a CFO, job in cyber doesn't end at 6 o'clock, because, you know, the criminal guys aren't going to sleep at 6. They're not like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. Everyone's left. Hey, everyone, go home, relax. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Start at it again. They're going at it all the time. So how do you manage that? I mean, what are some of your tips? How do you deal with the pressure?
So there's simple so again, is understanding yourself will enable you to understand cyber. So what do I mean by understanding yourself? Looking at yourself from a holistic point of view. So and this applies to cyber, it also applies to people that take pride in saying, oh, when you ask them, how are you doing? It seems like a lot of people take pride in saying, oh, I'm just really busy. I'm like super busy. I'm so burnt out. I'm like, okay, well, I don't think that's something to be really proud of. But I think I used to do the same thing. So, you know, I am as guilty as anybody else.
I'm on my fourth quad espresso today. So that's 16 shots of espresso.
I have a solution for you. So what I found helpful was time management skills, organization skills, everything that I feel a CISO needs or any leader could benefit from. So what do I mean by time management? People think that time management just means, oh, you just have to manage your time better. But how is the real question? So if you look at your life in a 24-hour clock, not a 12-hour or 8-hour clock, 24-hour clock, and then you start writing down all the things you do within that 24-hour clock, which includes sleep, eating, talking on the phone, driving home, you know, and then your core of the day, you know, managing time with family, everything. So if you start write everything down, and then start, you know, for a period of a week, and then try to see, like, where do you see any gaps? Where do you think you're spending a lot of time, which you might not have even realized, and seeing what is the value you're getting from that. So if you're spending 3 hours talking on the phone or watching Netflix, are you getting any benefit from that? Is there a value in that? Is that making you feel any better? And then you'll start noticing you will actually end up seeing that there is time in your calendar. And some people say, well, I need 8 hours of sleep. If you think about that, eight out of 24 hours, that's like a third of your day. Do you really need 8 hours of sleep? And if you find that you change your eating habits, you'll actually need less sleep, because it'll make you more productive during the day if you actually eat well and take care of yourself better. So from a mental standpoint, you know, looking at your day, actually visualizing yourself going through your schedule the next day, and enabling yourself to have those feelings. Okay, I'm going to have this big meeting tomorrow. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to feel refreshed. And bringing those feelings within you before you go to sleep at night, you'll start noticing your days are going to go by differently, and you'll end up with more energy, and you can do more things more efficiently. And again, if you take care of your body and you eat nutritiously, you're eating, you know, healthy food, lighter food, you're not overeating, the inertia in your body will actually start changing, so that you don't need a full 8 hours. You might actually be okay with 4 hours. I don't sleep more than 4 hours a day.
Wow.
And I'm okay. Like, I'm probably the most energetic in the mornings. This is like my natural self after 4 hours. You know, if I get less than 3, it might be a little edgy.
I get edgy when I'm hungry and I don't have espresso.
Yeah. So, you know, caffeine is another stimulant that makes you feel like you have an energy boost, but all it's doing is giving you like a high, and then you're gonna crash when that boost is gone.
Not unless you drink a lot of it, like all day. You pace yourself, then, you know, as the crash comes, you do another one, and kind of like heroin. No, I'm kidding.
Sounds like you need to come to my wellness practice.
I may have that. I mean, I will tell you a kind of a funny story. So we were in Dallas last week to do a live podcast, and we did our CISO roundtable. And we stayed in the hotel. It was there was no coffee shop. The only coffee they had was black coffee. I can't drink black coffee. I can't. I've tried. I can't drink it. Micah can attest to the fact that I was a non-functioning person for the entire time we were in Texas because I couldn't get an espresso because there was just no espresso nearby. And the lessons I've learned is rent a car. Don't Uber anymore. Don't Uber. Rent a car.
So I have appointments available on Monday if you'd like. Just kidding.
I say that as I drink my espresso. Sure, I'll come to your wellness clinic.
Well, so there are things you can do for yourself without actually going anywhere. So a lot of my healing after the third baby, I realized that I was in so much pain. I could barely like walk or sit or stand that I couldn't actually get myself to go to a wellness practice or a doctor. So I started doing a whole lot of research on different therapies you can do for yourself. So things like EFT tapping, you actually tap on like different parts of your body. And just gentle tapping. You don't need to like put like needles in just like acupuncture. So like this karate chop point, like it's in the middle of your pinky and you're in the bottom of your hand. You know, even if you do this during the talk, you just do that for like a minute, and then you start thinking positive thoughts or envision yourself in a state that you want to be in. You'll start noticing like all this energy is going to start flowing, all through your body. And there's another point called the gamut point, which is between your pinky and your ring finger, like right there in the middle of your hand. So if you just tap that. And these are amazing ways to even, if you're going to an important meeting, or do it under the table. If you're in a meeting and then you're really, somebody's saying something that's really frustrating you, before you take it out on them, just, hide your hands underneath their table and then like tap on these points. You'll start noticing like your whole energy will change. And by you changing your energy, you're actually changing the interaction with the other person.
That's very interesting because predominantly one of the main challenges that's typically stereotyped to cyber folks is communication, right? A lot of people think of us as hooded hackers, right? Like no face or the white masks. They think of cyber folks as being just complete and absolute. I'm on this kick of watching really old TV shows right now. So in like in like the hour or 90 minutes a night that I have sometimes where I'm sitting with my wife watching TV, we're watching something. I've tried to get, my wife's from Israel, so she's not really aware of a lot of the, she knows American culture, but she knows like recent American culture. She doesn't know like 90s and early 2000s, like, original NCIS or original CSI. And so we've been on this kick of watching some of these old shows, and they all show like the beginning of the cyber unit. And, they identify and kind of mischaracterize cyber folks as not being very communicators, being very shy, not being able to maintain eye contact. And I feel like that stigma has carried on to the role, irregardless of whether or not people are like you, because you're very outgoing, you're very easy. A lot of people look at security folks as the no people, the stigma people, the basement people, right? Like, that's the dark layer, kind of like in Lion King. See, Simba, this is your kingdom. Don't go there. And that don't go there is cyber almost.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because, just being a female, that too a minority in this kind of position, we get slack from other professionals that are in the same position, but also by everyone else that's not in the cyber position. So it's almost like we have to justify, I felt the need to justify myself even among other cyber colleagues, but also with everybody else, because they look at me and then it's I've been a keynote speaker at conferences And it's like they're expecting someone, different gender, a different age group, and someone that looks very different. So when I show up there, I'm like, "Hi, I'm Jothi." I get it. "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you the executive assistant for, Jothi, or who are you representing? Or can he not make it today?" I'm like, okay, let me try this again." Like, I am the speaker, and I've actually had to justify that in some of these conferences. I'm like, wow, this is like such a shame, because when I graduated from electrical engineering back in 2000, 20 years ago, I was one of the, I was one of two Indian American females in engineering. And I thought to myself, like, well, you know what? All of this is going to change in the next 20 years. There's going to be a lot more women. And I've been I speak a lot at colleges and high schools. And when I look at the stats, it's still about like 1 in every 200 people are females in engineering and these technical areas. So it's just disappointing to see that we really haven't grown much in the last 20 years, but I'm hoping to change that.
So why do you feel that? Why is it? What's intimidating women from getting into? I mean, I have a 14-year-old daughter, right? So I share the pain of I always tell my daughter, you don't have to be a HR lady or a marketing girl. That's not the career path. You can go down any career path you want. Why do you feel like that's such a hindrance for so many women? What's stopping more women from being interested in the cyber career or the tech field?
It starts from a young age. So when you look at even elementary schools, and all the way through high school, they do have STEM programs, which is great. But if you look at the percentage of females or girls that actually continue through STEM and actually stick with it, it's still pretty low. So in the elementary school, they might have joined STEM, but by the fourth grade, they drop out. In high school, if they had joined STEM, by the 10th grade, they drop out. And I did a lot of research on this, trying to figure like, why did they drop out? There's always, the answer is never one thing. So if you look at their families, their schools, their teachers, their friends, boys that might mimic them, but also girls that actually their own girlfriends don't support other girls being in STEM, and then they feel like it's a threat. So I've noticed this as a woman as well. It's hard to find other women that actually support and encourage other women to succeed. It's like they feel like if this woman succeed, then that means I won't succeed. So they're internalizing and personalizing somebody else's success and not really looking at life from an abundance point of view. They're looking at it from a scarcity point of view, that there's only a certain number of jobs, and if this other person takes it, then that means I won't have it. But that's really such a that's not how life works. There's plenty to go around for everyone.
Yeah, that seems to be so common too, which is and you see it not only among women, but also among men. A lot of people always say, men are quick to help one another. And I go, well, that just depends on the man. We've all had that bad boss at one point or another that, was afraid of moving anyone up that was nearly competent out of pure sheer fear of that person replacing them. And, in cyber, and I think in general, just in the economy of today, which is a different economy from what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, there's no loss of jobs, meaning jobs are just adding up. We're adding more jobs than the workforce can fill. Yep. So it seems like that almost goes back to your wellness piece of how do we approach that in the cyber field. And if we just had maybe better wellness, maybe would be in a better position to really tackle this, right?
Exactly. And that's why I've been so passionate about merging all of these fields together. Because if you understand yourself, you will automatically know you don't have to live in fear or fear-based thinking or scarcity thinking. So fear-based thinking also carries into the cyber field. A lot of times something happens to some other organization and you immediately go into a fear-based thinking mode in your own organization, and you end up getting a whole bunch of tools and you put that in place, or you just tell your staff that, oh, okay, I'll just throw a whole bunch of resources at you. And without taking a step back and looking at things from a holistic and integrated point of view, and really taking things from a positive mindset versus reacting to things from a fear-based mindset. So going back to the other question about women, Ashley hadn't pointed out that, so women are also there's two main reasons why they don't apply to cyber jobs or technical positions, or it just doesn't appeal to them, is because one is fear. Cyber is often portrayed as a scary field. They're very technical, and even now when you do the research, there's only about 14 to 15% of women across the board, which isn't really a very it's not an enticing area for you to want to go into. But the number two is actually really important. It's that women need a mentor or role model to look up to, especially someone that looks like them. So if they have a male mentor, that's great, and that it's good for a certain amount of time, but it really doesn't give them the emotional connection or just the energy connection that another woman would, especially another woman that's been in that role, and they're like 10 steps ahead. So when I give talks at conferences, I have a whole lot of women and younger girls that come up to me like, oh, I didn't know someone like you can be in this field. And when I ask them, what do you mean someone like me? They're like, well, we've never seen like an Indian American in this position, or we've never seen an Asian woman, or we've never seen a woman in this role before. So, I truly believe that for any women out there that are in technical leadership positions, you have to make yourself visible. It's not just to get speaking gigs or to promote yourself, but it's to empower our younger generation and to empower and inspire other women to get into the field.
Speaking of that, you do spend time, we were talking before our interview on our call, and you said you mentor and coach a lot of young students and professionals, and like you just mentioned, women want to be mentored. I know my daughter looks up to women more than she does man. I'd like to think that I'm her number one hero, but I also know that her mom is probably her number one hero, because her mom looks like her and her mom has to overcome all the same difficulties she does. And as you're mentoring and coaching these young professionals, what do you feel like they're scared of and need the help with the most? And how do you translate that into them choosing to maybe step away from the tech field or the cyber industry?
So again, I think it goes back to the fear of the unknown. So when you have an unknown, especially for women, it's hard for them to get past that and drive forward just to see what's out there. So it goes back to like a risk-taking mentality. So right from a young age, girls in pretty much any culture, they're not encouraged to take risks. They're more protected by their families, just in case they do something wrong or they fall off the sofa. The parents or families are like rushing to their rescue. So they start learning.
I am guilty of that. I am so guilty of that. If my daughter texts me with the word H, I don't think of hello. I think of help, right? Okay. Like that's just, I don't know what that is. That is instinct, I guess, right? I mean,
so we have to start changing that mindset, because it gets ingrained in our young kids right from, the day they were born. But if it's a boy, when you have, boys, it's like exactly the opposite. Oh, you fell off the couch and you hurt your arm. That's okay. You're not bleeding and, you're still breathing. So you'll be fine. Just pick yourself up and dust yourself off and, get back to whatever you're doing. So they just learn from a young age just to be tough, to have that tough mindset. And I'm not saying women have to learn to be tough or act like men, but what their fear-based thinking needs to change. And the way it would change is right from a young age. So if we can start working with them right from they're young, that would be ideal. But let's just say you're speaking with young women or older girls now who are past that stage. Again, it's understanding yourself. So women are wired differently than men. We all know that. There's lots of research studies that are done with that. But it's also understanding, why is that wiring important. So sometimes what happens even in a married couple with is you're expecting both to act the same way, and then you're also expecting women, once we got the right to vote and we women started working more, several decades ago, they started acting like men. So they thought they had to come into the workplace with a suit on, pants, and act macho, just to show others that, oh, I can do it too. So I think now we're in an age where, okay, we're past that. So you can still show up to work, being your authentic, genuine self as a woman, and feel comfortable in that. But not a lot of women do. They feel like, okay, if I'm in this role, especially in the tech industry or cyber or any other like male-dominated industry, I need to show up and I need to act like a man. But you really don't. I think we need to empower women to not feel that way. It's okay to show emotion. It's okay to be your authentic self and be your feminine self. Like, you don't have to put on this masculine mask and show up as a guy everywhere.
So Jothi, kind of going into this, our younger generation, and empowering women and empowering minorities to go into the tech and cyber field. The new threat attack vector that's really kind of emerging is social media. And we see that, kind of one of the bigger news stories around social media is obviously the elections and so forth, but there are social media cyber threats. And those are really a big threat on our younger generation. How do we maybe use that to empower our younger generation to look into the tech and cyber field?
So I believe in speaking at elementary schools is going to be key, or having, right from elementary school age, understanding what cyberbullying is, how can we, enable students to realize when that's occurring, teaching about privacy, not putting every single body part of yours out on social media, or, sharing things or sharing too much. So a lot of there are some really good information out there for people trying to help with the cyberbullying, but everything also comes down to just understanding wellness, really. Like, teaching kids how to be empowered so they have self-worth for themselves. Because if you look at really bullying and why do people do that, it happens not just for kids, it happens in the workplace, with the whole anti-harassment movement that's going on. So it carries on from childhood and also through adulthood. And if you look at the root cause of that, it's because of people that don't appreciate their own self-worth. They don't maybe love themselves enough to know that, if you love yourself enough, and if you understand your own self-worth, you're not going to hurt somebody else, or you're not going to say something too hurtful to others. So, everything kind of boils down to your own mental wellness, mental, physical, energetic wellness. But one thing that would help with the actual social media issues right now is to start at a young age, bring in more actual cyber programs within elementary schools or grade schools. It's not just a lot of people, like you said at the beginning of our talk, assume that, cyber just means bringing in coding classes into schools. Like, okay, you can consider coding as maybe one small portion of cyber, but as we all know, it's a very small portion. But bringing more classes like mindfulness, the wellness aspect, the social and emotional maturity of kids, All of that kind of plays a part in cyberbullying, and also just the people's need or want to share so much of themselves freely to social media. Why do they do that? Why are they living off of Facebook or Instagram, or they have to take pictures of themselves everywhere they go and put it all out there? It all comes down to people understanding their own self-worth. I mean, I have zero time to sit there going on Facebook and commenting on everybody else's picture or putting like my own pictures out there. What are you really trying to get out of it? So I think it's a question that most people don't want to answer because it brings out their insecurities and their fears.
So Jothi, that's a great point about social media, but what role does social media really play in the burnout, especially in our younger generation and especially in today's world? Because you were talking about, bullying, and it seems like when you look at social media in general, I look and I even said it this morning in our daily cyber briefing, there's planet Earth and then there's planet Twitter. And what exists on planet Twitter doesn't necessarily coincide with planet Earth. How does that attribute to the burnout in our younger generation and in the challenges in our workforce?
Sure. So if you really go back to how things were, even when I was growing up, say 30 years ago. So kids were just able to just go out. They came back from school. You just went out to your neighborhood. You just played with, the kids there. No one was really watching you, especially in this country. I'm not sure about other countries, but, you just went out. You felt safe.
Right.
There was no like predators like lurking around, or, that you didn't really hear about stories like that. And then you came back, did your homework and, went on for the rest of your day. You also had, or at least I had, a lot more time just outside in nature, because you didn't have things like Twitter, computers,
video
mobile
games, right?
Video games. Oh, actually, I think I did have video games like Atari.
Right, but Atari was only good for like 45 minutes, and after that it'd get really warm, and you'd unhook it, you'd blow on the game, put it back in.
Or you had your parents on your back, like, okay, that's enough of this stuff,
right,
off.
Go outside, go play in the dirt.
Yeah, go learn how to ride your bike and, go run around in the grass. So, it's a big epidemic now with kids, that it plays a huge part, not just wellness and burnout, but also, obesity. We have the highest childhood obesity rate in the U.S. specifically. One has to do with the diet and food that people eat, but the other aspect of it is just not getting enough time just to be yourself and one with nature. So that's part of it. And, how does it apply to social media? That whole dynamic just changes how you view relationships. So, there was never a question of dating online back in the day. You just go out and you meet people, and if your energy connects with their energy, then, you might have some attraction there, and then, that's it. Like right now, there's so much, people are meeting online, which is totally, I'm not condemning that at all. That's a great way to do that. But there's so much just like online, everything is gadget. You're wearing gadgets, you're looking at gadgets, you're around gadgets, like nonstop 24/7. The one aspect that people don't realize is it's not just you looking at a computer screen that affects your brain and your body. It's actually just being around electrical gadgets. All those EMF rays play an effect on your body. So, people say, well, I'm not really on the computer much, but then they sleep with the computer like right next to them, or their phone is right next to them, or they're wearing their Fitbit like 24 hours a day because they want to track this and that, without realizing that all of these really affect you from a wellness perspective. You're basically attracting all of those gamma rays and their EMF rays to you. And then they find out, they do some research articles 10 years later, they find out like, oh, whoever wore a Fitbit for 10 years, now has a higher risk for, a certain disease or cancer or something like that. But it's all just common sense. If you look at it, if you look at all of these rates, why are they increasing now and they didn't before? All of this plays a part. So where social media comes into burnout is because people, especially the younger generation, is getting so used to making and maintaining relationships purely based on texting, Facebook, Instagram, all sorts of online or digital media. They don't really have that social interaction face to face with people as much as we used to before. So that really, it starts affecting their own wellness because then they're not making actual true connections with people. Because it's different when I'm talking to you on a computer, okay, how's your day, blah, blah, blah. But then if I'm not getting any sort of social interaction with another human being face to face, it starts affecting your brain in a different way. So this was never really a problem back in the day because we didn't have computers, so we only spoke to people face to face.
Do you feel like that's also hurting the definition of self? I mean, obviously all these, screens, these gadgets, these automated interactions, like you said, with your iWatch or your Fitbit, your iPad, your phone, whatever that is, they almost eliminate your ability to identify self. And one of the one of the perspectives of looking at this, at least from what I see it, when I speak to students, is not a lot of them have a definition of self. I think that when we were able to go and play outside and use our imagination when we were kids 30 years ago, we were able to find our definition of self. Because we played, even if we were with our friends, we played cops and robbers, or tea parties, or friends, or we played pretend. That was our way, and that kind of built your definition of self. Who is James? Who is Jothi? And today, these kids, they're not even able to identify self, because their self is one person on Instagram, one person on Facebook, another person on Snapchat, a different person on TikTok, and a different person somewhere else. They're really not able to even mold an identity of who they are until they're 30.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think it's also they're trying to be someone that's acceptable to somebody else.
Correct.
Without really understanding who do they want to be? Who is Jothi? Like, am I just trying to be someone that's satisfying my parents or my spouse or my kids or my boss or somebody else on the road? And am I just bringing all of that? And that is you hit the nail on the head. Like, that's the number one cause of burnout, because you're trying to be someone who you're really not. And at some point in time, you're just going to be burnt out. Because I'm like, hey, I'm trying to be this person, that person, this person, that person. But all of that has nothing to do with who I am internally, just my genuine self.
So kind of taking that into the role of cyber and the burnout in the cyber field is insane. I mean, when you and I were talking on the phone, you see the burnout rates in specific positions, CISO included, but even from a SOC perspective and so many others. How do we start taking our kind of like your wellness approach to really reduce this burnout rate? And what are some of the practical best practices that we can kind of employ? Like, I mean, ever since you told me to do this, so, you can't see it, but my hand's like right under here and I'm doing this, like, as you're talking, and I'm really trying, and it's really working. Like, it's, we had a few technical issues and I didn't get flustered. I didn't, excuse me. I didn't get frustrated. I was just like, all right, just, someone doesn't want this message to get out. Whoever that isn't going to win this one. We're going to win it. We're going to get this message out. Mental wellness and cyber. I think that's so important. And on a real note, and I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this. Oftentimes we talk about, CISOs and when a vendor says, what is it going to take to get you for a 30-minute meeting? I'm like, well, I know a great bourbon place, right? I know a great whiskey place. I know an awesome coffee shop I want to go to. But the rates of alcohol addiction and drug addiction and prescription pill addiction within the cyber community are some of the highest in any role in any organization. A lot of our peers are self-medicating or medicating through prescription pills and so forth, and that leads to a burnout rate, that leads to a lot of illnesses. And so kind of knocking it all out, what can we do to help reduce this, to increase our wellness, to increase our performance, and really become a more wholesome people in our roles, and especially in cyber, and this is such a challenging industry. And what do you do? Because obviously you've got you're doing this right. So please teach us.
I have my moments too, but the key is to get out of those moments quicker and quicker as you learn these things. So it's funny because you say that, because my husband will catch me in those moments like, see, you're not perfect either. I'm like, you know what? I fully accept that I was not perfect, but I'm on it. I understand this is not my proudest moment right now. And then this is to capture that and then kind of move past that. Okay, what do I need to do to get back into my normal being? But what I was going to say is that, so workforce wellness. Workforce wellness and mental wellness, sometimes some people look at it as it's a great thing to do. Some people look at it as, oh, that's only for the people that are not well. They don't consider it as, this is just a must in your daily life. I've spoken to a lot of friends, who encounter problems like that. Oh, I can't stop my addiction to this, that, and the other. People look at addiction even as, unless they only look at addiction as, alcohol addiction or drug addiction or sex addiction, but they don't really consider working too much as an addiction. Because if you really look at people that say, oh, my job, like it's 24/7, I have so much work to do, I can't stop, this and that, it's actually an addiction. Because that means they're basically fearing, what would they do if they didn't work so much? That's what they're really fearing. Does that mean I have to spend more time with family? And what is there a fear behind that? So they tend to just put all of their focus into work. It's not that if they disappear one day, the work is going to disappear. They'll just find somebody else to do the work. So just identifying your own addictions, and really look at it from a deep down perspective. Like, what are you spending the majority of your time doing? Are you doing it because you're serving others and you feel happy about that? Are you doing it because you find joy and happiness in doing that? Then yeah, great. You know what? You should do that. But if it's just because, well, I have to be here because the world's going to collapse without me, then there might be something deep down that you're fearing. So you're treating this almost like an addiction. But so bringing wellness into the workplace. If you don't have a workplace wellness program, start one. That's what I did. You don't really hear about wellness programs in the IT industry. They're like, oh, you gotta, or they'll say, oh, there's a yoga class like down the street. You should just go do that. And yoga's great, don't get me wrong, but it's most people aren't going to go somewhere else to focus on their wellness. You need to bring the wellness to the workplace. So maybe having a workplace wellness type of, anyone can start it. Maybe just start like a mindful Monday practice. Everyone get in a room, put some mindful YouTube videos on. Everyone does it together, and it's almost a bonding exercise. So as you said before, cyber professionals are known in general not to be very, compassionate,
right,
or very they don't really attract people to them. Or they're not very approachable. So this is a great way to like, okay, let's start a mindful Monday practice. Everyone just get in the rooms, voluntary based. Get a few people and they'll start spreading the word if they like it. Just like this tapping practice. When you first mentioned it to people, like, what, tapping? That's not for me because I'm totally okay. But maybe I'll tell somebody else about this. And maybe they do. So spreading the word and starting something on your own. Don't be afraid. I mean, I brought this to my supervisor when I got here. I said, okay, I want to do cybersecurity, but you know what? My passion is helping people in general from a humanistic standpoint. So can I start a health and wellness program here? And, that's great that my management was supportive. But it was like, okay, that's great. Go ahead and do it. And, it was all up to me to figure out, okay, well, how do I want to do this? What do I want to do? This is a lot of work to do it really well. But once you start it and you start gaining momentum, people start getting really into it. And then they start realizing that this is the way to bridge worlds together. You have people from, a diverse group of countries, ages, experiences. They might not all agree on a technical topic, but they'll all agree that on a wellness topic. If we're doing this to serve you so that you can be your best self at work, outside of work, and really understand yourself. I think that it really bridges, forms that bridge to have like a full community come together.
Right. It kind of builds that consensus of not only team building, but if you've got wellness and mindfulness, when incidents happen and events happen that require people to really come together and work together, the tension in the room won't get as high as some of the rooms I'm sure you and I have both been in where, people are just down each other's throats. And this may be a way to just kind of relieve that stress a little bit and help people kind of focus towards solving the problem, not beating each other down for the problem that's happened already.
Yeah, and just teaching just simple techniques like that, and bringing the abundance mindset into people's minds, because there's too many people in the world that have the scarcity mindset. Oh, this other person got the job. How dare he? What does he have that I don't have? And they don't really realize that the more of that kind of energy that they put out, the more of it they're getting back. So if you notice people who constantly have bad luck, or there's always things that are happening in their life that aren't so positive. I lost my job, then this happened, then that happened, then this happened. It's one of the main reasons is because they keep focusing on the negative, and then they keep putting out this negative energy that just attracts more negative things.
Yeah, I think one of the things that saved me in the lowest point of my life was my partner, who's now my wife, Corinne, at the time. She brought me the book and the movie The Secret.
Yes, The Secret. Yep.
And there was a period of time when I'm telling you, I was broker than broke. I probably had no money to my name. I was lucky to even have a place to live. And she brought me this book and she says, just read this, watch the movie, and just, you've got to do you got to switch the way your mind operates.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to go to sleep to The Secret and I'd just have it on loop on DVD, right? And it just play all night while I was sleeping. Yeah. And within months, I started to see specific things in my behavior change subconsciously, because subconsciously, when you're constantly hearing positivity, you tend to start to react to it subconsciously, because you subconsciously, you're no longer getting upset. You're now taking it in a little different. And that really did transform my behavioral change from being a very negative person and getting stressed out to taking things in stride, to evaluating the whole situation, and then being able to really, identify, all right, what's really important from all of this, and kind of discerning information and being able to also lead others to kind of deal and move beyond the challenges that exist. And I feel like oftentimes in cybersecurity, where we're so focused on the here and now, we almost forget to look ahead. And, you know, I always say there's two different kinds of CISOs. There are ones who are protecting and there are ones who are reacting. And the ones that are protecting are people like you. Relaxed. They're positive. They're building that wellness. They understand that you can't stop everything, but we're going to protect and we're going to detect and we're going to identify and we're going to react and we're going to recover. And there are others who are just constantly reacting and recovering. They're not spending any time identifying, detecting, and so forth. And so this is like really eye-opening from your mindset. What's the name of your book so people can know all about because you're an author, you've got a book out.
I don't have a book out yet, but I'm working on getting it out. So the title is actually the biggest struggle.
Like all things in life.
So I've thought about different ones, but hey, if anyone has any great ideas, please send them to you or me. But a couple things I was thinking of is like mind, body, cyber. You know, or now that I have this new idea or that article kind of pointed me in the right direction of the mindful hackers or the wellness hackers. Like, oh, that's a great, you know, idea for or a title for a book. So yeah, so I haven't really honed in because I really needed to like resonate with me. So when I talk about it, I feel like, okay, this is
own it. You own it. You want to own it.
Yeah.
I get it.
So I'm not there yet. But one thing you're saying just really quick was about the secret. So I don't know if it was a secret or something else I learned, but I've started to think of life as just positive experiences or learning experiences. So when you think of something as, okay, either that was positive, that's great, I'm going to do this exactly that way next time, or it's a learning experience. Okay, so that went differently than what I had predicted. What can I learn from this and then carry it forward? Because a lot of people think of it as like, oh my gosh, this happened. How dare that person say that? And they just start like really digging themselves a deeper hole on treating it as a whole negative experience versus just, okay, what can I learn from it? Why did this, you know, let me take this experience and how can I move it forward? Because I do believe that everything happens for a reason. Even the most negative experience, like you said, you were completely broke, but look where you are now. So if we just, you know, continued focusing on the fact that you were broke, then you probably wouldn't be where you are now. But you started looking at it as a learning experience. Okay, what happened there that I should not do again? And then how can I take that and, you know, basically move forward?
Correct. How can you excel from that low point? Not how do you get stuck in it?
Yeah.
Right. And I think for a lot of people that are in our industry, like I said, the substance and alcohol abuse rates are I mean, just high. And unfortunately, that's a challenge in our industry that we really do need to come forward with and try to tackle it in a more responsible way. And a lot of that is through really mental wellness and just being able to find other ways to deal with the pressure that come with the job through, you know, like you said, mental wellness stuff of just maybe taking an hour a week and getting your team together and just maybe talking about thankfulness or just, you know, talking about gratefulness or doing a team building exercise, playing a trivia game on Kahoot, just all kinds of different things to just loosen people up and get them to just for a moment to just relax, reduce their heart rate and their blood pressure and just really come together. And that's so important. When you and I spoke on the phone and we're prepping for this podcast, I mean, I got to tell you, for about a day and a half thereafter, I was just in a very happy place because I kept reflecting on that, and that was really positive. And so I'm grateful that you took the time to be with us today, Jothi. This was absolutely unbelievable. I can't wait to catch one of your wellness lessons. Do you do those online or are those in person?
I customize it per person. So I don't have something that's this is how it is, take it or leave it. It's more like, you know, what do you need? And we'll tailor it for that.
Awesome. The new world of 2020. Everything's online. Get away from screens, but stick on them if you need them.
Or put them away from you.
Yeah, just keep them like on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jothi. I really do appreciate it. For those tuning in, Jothi Dugar. Did I say it right? I'm sorry. Okay, cool. CISO, author, dance instructor, wellness instructor. I mean, her resume goes on. It's not the standard one that we're used to in security. Master Sergeant, Master Lieutenant, and so forth. But a really unique point of view into our mental wellness in cyber and how important that really is. And it's a really important topic that, you know, everyone keeps talking about technology and workforce shortage, but no one's really talking about our mental health. And heading into RSA in a few weeks, where people are going to be working 20 hours a day in San Francisco and partying and meeting their peers and their customers and their potential clients and their partners, it's really important to just take a moment and really just come together and really just support one another no matter where we are, to really excel in the field of cybersecurity and maintain our mental health and our mental wellness, so that we as an industry continue to strive and thrive and become better. Jothi with unbelievable wisdom today. I hope you folks enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Shabbat Shalom. And we'll be back next week with so much more coverage directly from RSA. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend, folks.